The dress that was never worn. The scent of lilies filled the chapel, their delicate fragrance floating through the air like a promise. The guests had taken their seats, the pianist had begun her gentle tune, and Emily stood in front of the mirror in the bridal suite, the lace of her wedding gown brushing against the floor. Her phone buzzed. At first, she smiled. Maybe it was Jack telling her how much he couldn't wait to see her walk down the aisle. But as she read the message, her knees buckled. "I can't do this. I'm sorry." 4 words. Her world shattered with 4 words. After the fall. The following week was a blur. Whispers, returned gifts, her mother's well-meaning but painful pep talks. Emily stayed in her small apartment, blinds drawn, the silence only broken by the occasional sniffle or clink of a spoon in her untouched cereal. She had built her whole life around Jack. From the moment they met in college, she had molded her dreams to match his. Now, she was left with a dress, a lease, and a job she'd just quit. And a heart that didn't know how to keep beating. But rock bottom has a way of offering clarity. One rainy morning, wrapped in an old hoodie and holding a mug of lukewarm coffee, Emily opened her laptop and typed into the search bar, "live-in nanny jobs." She wasn't sure why. Maybe because caring for someone else would be easier than caring for herself. Maybe because she needed to disappear, to start over. The interview. The ad was simple: nanny needed. Must be kind, reliable, good with children. Privacy a must. High-profile family. The address for the interview was in Greenwich, Connecticut. She almost backed out a dozen times, but something, a quiet stubbornness deep within her, pushed her through the gates of the sprawling estate. She expected a staff to greet her. Instead, a man in jeans and a navy sweater opened the door. He was tall, with dark hair that curled at the edges and tired eyes that looked like they hadn't known sleep in days. "You must be Emily," he said. She nodded, surprised. "And you are?" "Nathaniel Grant. But everyone calls me Nate." Her eyes widened. "Nate Grant. The Nate Grant. Tech genius, founder of one of the biggest startups in the country, widower, and father to a 6-year-old girl." He gestured her in. "Let's make this quick. Sophie doesn't take well to strangers." Sophie. Sophie was a bundle of curls and wary glances. She peeked at Emily from behind a doorway, clutching a stuffed llama to her chest. "Hi there," Emily said, kneeling. "I'm Emily. I like your llama." Silence. "His name is Toast," the little girl whispered. Emily smiled. "Hi Toast. It's very nice to meet you both." It wasn't much. But it was enough. 2 days later, she got the job. A house that wasn't a home. The mansion was immaculate, but it felt like a museum. Cold floors. Sterile art. Rooms that looked like they belonged in magazines but lacked laughter. Nate was constantly working, taking calls in his office or jetting off for meetings. Sophie barely spoke. Emily spent most of her days trying to fill the silences with bedtime stories, art projects, and silly dances in the living room. It was exhausting. But one evening, after Emily put Sophie to bed with a story about dragons and fearless little girls, she heard a knock on her door. Nate stood there, holding 2 mugs of cocoa. "She laughed today," he said quietly. "At your story." "I haven't heard her laugh in months." Emily took the mug, her fingers brushing his. "She's brave. Like her dad, I think." Nate looked away. Her mom was the brave one. And for the first time, Emily saw the grief behind his carefully built walls. A snow day. It snowed late in January. The kind of snow that made the world seem clean again. Emily woke Sophie early and dragged her outside, bundling her in a pink coat and boots. Together, they built snowmen and made snow angels. Sophie shrieked with laughter when Emily slipped and fell face first into a drift. Nate came out, watching them from the porch. "Join us," Emily called. He hesitated. But then he did. They built a snow fort together. 3 broken people, finding joy in a winter morning. And Emily noticed something that made her chest tighten. Nate smiled like someone who forgot he could. The letter. In March, Emily found a letter in Sophie's backpack. It was addressed to Mommy. It was full of stick figure drawings and misspelled words, and it ended with, "I miss you. But Emily is nice. I think you'd like her." Emily cried. She didn't mean to. But it came from a place so deep she didn't know it existed. That night, she sat with Sophie as she fell asleep. Nate walked in and sat beside her. "Thank you," he said. She looked at him. For what? For being the person she needed. Address rewritten. Spring bloomed, and the house began to feel like a home. Sophie painted rainbows on the windows. Laughter echoed down hallways. One afternoon, Emily found herself in the attic, searching for a box of old photo albums. Instead, she found her wedding dress, still wrapped in plastic. She stared at it for a long time. Then she took it downstairs, cut off the bottom, dyed it blue, and turned it into a princess dress for Sophie. When Sophie twirled in it, her laughter was the most beautiful music Emily had ever heard. The choice. They almost kissed one night. Nate had come home late, rain soaking through his shirt. Emily met him at the door with a towel, and when their hands touched, something hung in the air. But she pulled back. "I can't, not like this. I need to know it's real. Not just because we're here, because it's easy." Nate nodded, though disappointment flickered in his eyes. She wasn't going to be a second choice. Letting go. Summer came. Sophie was thriving. Nate was smiling more. And Emily? She was ready. She applied to grad school, something she'd abandoned years ago. When she got her acceptance letter, she cried. But this time, they were tears of joy. She handed Nate her notice. "You're leaving," he said, not as a question. "I need to do this. For me." He nodded. "Then I'll drive you." The goodbye. The night before she left, Sophie snuck into her room. "Will you still be my friend?" Emily hugged her tight. "Always." Nate waited by the car the next morning. "You changed everything," he said. "So did you." They didn't kiss. Not yet. But in their eyes was a promise. The return. 1 year later, Emily walked through those gates again, diploma in hand. Sophie ran to her, hugging her fiercely. Nate stood by the porch. "You came back. I never really left." This time, when he kissed her, the world stopped. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was something better. Real. Epilogue, the new beginning. They married on a quiet afternoon in the backyard, surrounded by flowers and laughter. Sophie was the flower girl. Emily wore a new dress. This time, she was walking towards someone who had seen her at her lowest and loved her still. And that, she realized, was the most beautiful kind of love. Not one that begins in perfection. But one that grows in the broken places, watered by kindness, selflessness, and hope.